The morning broke with an unsettling calm over the Cullen house. It was too quiet. The kind of quiet that prickles your skin and makes every shadow feel alive. We were all on edge after Bella's arrival and her ominous warnings. But today something felt different, more intense. I could sense that we were being watched. And judging by the wary glances the others were casting toward the windows, I wasn't alone. Bella stood apart from us, her gaze sharp and unyielding as she scanned the tree line beyond the house. Her stance was rigid, her entire presence thrumming with barely contained power. I watched her from across the room, caught between admiration and unease. There was a fierceness in her I'd never seen in anyone else, a primal relentless energy that made her seem untouchable. But when she looked at me, her gaze softened just a bit, a private warmth hidden behind her steel blue eyes. It was a look she reserved only for me. I stepped closer to her, reaching out to rest my hand lightly on her arm. "What are you sensing?" I asked softly, without taking her eyes off the forest. She responded in a low even voice, "The Volturi. They're testing your defenses, sending scouts to watch and report back." Her lips twisted into a cold smile. "But they'll find nothing worth reporting." Before I could respond, she moved, swift as a shadow, slipping out the door and into the forest. I followed her to the porch, my heart pounding as I watched her vanish into the trees. Her figure seemed to blend with the darkness, an ancient predator slipping into its natural element. The rest of the family had gathered behind me, their expressions varying from worry to disbelief. Carlisle's brow was furrowed, his gaze steady but clearly troubled. "Rosalie, are you sure it's wise to let her handle this alone?" he asked, his voice tinged with caution. "She's more capable than you think," I replied, though even I was unsure of what I was about to witness. I wanted to believe she would act with restraint, but Bella was not one for subtlety or half measures. Her loyalty to me was boundless, and when it came to protecting what she cared for, mercy wasn't in her vocabulary. Moments later, a faint rustling sounded from the trees, followed by the snap of branches and a whisper of footsteps. Then, silence. It was as if the forest itself had stopped breathing. My family and I waited, tension mounting, each of us feeling the pulse of danger just beyond our sight. And then, without warning, it happened, a flash of movement, a muffled cry, and one of the Volturi scouts appeared, dragged forward by an invisible force. Bella stepped out of the shadows, gripping the scout by his collar, her face expressionless as she flung him to the ground. The other scout made a move to attack, but she was faster, infinitely faster. In one brutal precise motion, she struck, her hand cutting through the air like a blade, and the second scout crumpled, defeated. There was a harsh finality in her actions, a calculated efficiency that left no room for resistance. I'd known she was powerful, but seeing her in action was something else entirely. Bella moved with a terrifying grace, her movements almost too swift to follow, and in seconds, it was over. She straightened, her expression as cold and unfeeling as stone, and turned back toward us, her gaze fixed on me. Carlyle stepped forward, his face pale but resolute. "Bella," he said, his voice filled with a pleading sort of caution, "there has to be another way. Violence, it's not our way. We can negotiate, reason with them." Bella's face was impassive, her eyes narrowing slightly as she regarded him. "Negotiate?" she repeated, her tone laced with scorn. "The Volturi only respect one thing, power. Show them weakness, and they'll use it to crush you." The words were cold, but I knew she believed every one of them. She was a creature forged in a world of ancient rules, where mercy was a liability and survival depended on unyielding strength. I could see the flicker of disappointment in Carlyle's eyes, and part of me felt for him, but another part, the part that knew what it was like to feel protected, to be the one Bella had chosen to defend, understood her ruthless efficiency. "Bella," I murmured, catching her attention. She turned her gaze to me, and in that moment, the hardness in her eyes softened, just barely, but it was enough. I could feel the unspoken words between us, the quiet reassurance that she would protect me, no matter the cost. As if sensing the shift, she moved closer to me, her presence a comforting, steady force. She lifted her hand, brushing her fingers lightly along my arm, a subtle gesture, but one that sent warmth spreading through me. The family was watching, but in that moment, I didn't care. There was something between us, a bond that defied explanation, something that went beyond loyalty. "Are you all right?" she asked, her voice low. "Just for me." Her fierce gaze softened as she searched my face, her expression almost gentle, a rare vulnerability that only I ever saw. I nodded, swallowing back the surge of emotion that rose within me. "I'm fine," I replied, managing a small smile. "Thanks to you." She held my gaze, her hand lingering on my arm a moment longer than necessary, before she straightened, her expression hardening once more as she looked back at the others. "If you want peace, show them you're not afraid to defend it," she said, her voice firm. "They won't back down just because you ask nicely." Edward, who had been watching with a wary expression, stepped forward. "But what happens if they retaliate? This might only provoke them further." Bella's lips curled into a faint, almost dangerous smile. "Let them try." Her words hung in the air, and for a moment, no one dared to speak. She turned to face the forest, her posture proud and unbreakable, a warrior standing guard over the only thing she cared about. The forest seemed to pulse with her presence, as if even nature itself recognized her strength. Carlyle sighed, a troubled look in his eyes, but he nodded. "We'll trust your judgment, Bella," he said reluctantly, "but I hope we're not choosing a path we can't turn back from." She glanced back at me, a small, reassuring smile flickering across her face. It was a look meant only for me, a silent promise that she would stay by my side, no matter what. And in that moment, despite the looming threat of the Volturi, I felt an overwhelming sense of safety, knowing that Bella, a fierce, unyielding Bella, was here for me, willing to face any danger. As she turned back to the forest, her hand brushed mine, a brief touch that spoke of something more than protection. It was a silent vow, one that only I could understand. I stayed by her side, watching her as she guarded the perimeter. My ancient, beautiful protector. I knew that with her here, we had a chance, no matter how fierce the storm ahead might be.